Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Eric Murphy.
I'm V. LaBianca.
This is Skeptic Generation.
And we need to talk.
Hey V, how's it going?
Hi, it's going good.
Holy moly, with 3 minutes left, the computer decided that it didn't want to play any of the audio. And so after testing everything, we needed to restart the entire computer. And so we started the stream late. How long has it been since we've started a late stream? I feel like we haven't done that since episode 1.
Yeah, I mean, beginning of every season, maybe it's a custom. Like, we just expect it once every season.
There's just something.
There's something we have to start a little bit late. It's better than half an hour late.
I agree. It is much better than half an hour late.
That was rough. Hey, everybody.
Hey, I'm taking a look at the comment. If you haven't seen the intro before, thank you. We love that we did a updated intro.
Yes.
When we did our first intro last year, it was kind of rushed. We did our best, but we were able to pull clips from last year's calls and put that in the background, and we had a lot of fun doing that together.
It was so much fun, and I don't know if the cheer went through, but there is a cheer there that's supposed to be there.
Yeah, I don't think the cheer went through, but if you heard the cheer, let us know. I also tried to set up a safety copy, and because we had to restart the computer, the safety copy didn't go through, so that's okay. That is okay. Also, let's see. Well, before we dive into calls, let's talk just a little bit. Hey, V.
Hey.
How was your week?
It was good. It was busy being back at work after a holiday break.
Yeah.
We're back in stage 5. Cautionary stuff, social distancing for Austin, so that's fun. So I was working from home.
Yeah.
But it's been good. We got something really exciting. Can you hear this?
If you can't, it's because it is a keyboard that a very, very kind patron sent over to us, so you don't have to hear the click-clacking. We are doing our best to make things sound a little bit better every time, and hopefully it sounds better now. Speaking of things getting better,
yes.
If you like what we do and you want to support us, or if you just want to get an ad-free version of the podcast or this video, we put those out on Patreon after the show every single week. If you want to get access to that, consider becoming a patron. You can go to patreon.com/skepticgeneration. That's patreon.com/skepticgeneration. We also have all of our gear up for our wish list on Amazon. Our Amazon wish list is geared towards our big goal this year of getting a producer and getting a production computer for them to sit at so that we can just focus on the calls. So that is our goal. We're going to be fundraising to that end, which means that we are happy to announce that we're going to be doing another kind of stream in the middle of the week. It is Versus.
Yeah.
And this month it's going to be What is Consciousness? The Versus event is going to be on V. I'm having trouble.
The whiteboard where we write our notes is far away. It's going to be on the 19th. So next Wednesday, not this coming Wednesday, but the Wednesday after that.
Thank you. Yeah, January 19th, join us. V and I are going to be arguing with each other about what is consciousness. We're also going to be opening up the lines so that people can call in and tell us if they think that I'm absolutely wrong or not, or V's got something and on point.
A live call-in debate show? What?
Yeah, well, not exactly debate, but close enough. Close enough.
You don't like the word debate for this, I know.
Yeah, but that's okay. We're going to be taking any money that comes in from that and putting that directly into a producer and a production computer. If you want to see that happen sooner, that Amazon wish list was up on the link. If we could we throw that up one more time?
Sure.
And then, so that's tiny.cc/SG wish list. And if you just want to buy us a coffee, we'd appreciate it. We like coffee. If you can see, Fee has a coffee mug as big as their head. Fee needs coffee, you guys. That said,
a couple other things before we jump in, though.
Yeah,
I do want to shout out our merch line, which is on sale right now.
Yes, absolutely. There is new 2022. Sorry, go ahead.
New 2022 merch for the class of 2022. Right now, we are running a sale all of January. Everything's $2 off, because it's season 2. So go check that out. You can actually get there directly from our YouTube page because we've linked with Spring. We've got some really good merch, and I think it's going to be higher quality as well than Redbubble. We got some Redbubble merch and have been using it just to see if it lasted, and the mugs are kind of chippy and it's not great. So we're hoping that this is going to up the quality without upping the price for you guys at all.
That said, if you did get merch from 2021 last year, there's nowhere else you're going to be able to buy it. So hold on to it tight, because that is not going up for sale ever again.
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited about that. I'm happy. V, are you ready to take some calls?
I am ready to take some calls.
All right. Who are we going to talk to first?
Let's talk with Andrew. Andrew was helpful with our little audio issue. We pulled him in for a minute.
Absolutely. Let's talk to Andrew. Andrew is calling about an analysis of what it means to believe something and the nature of disbelief or the lack of belief. Andrew in Pennsylvania, you're live with Eric and V.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, doing well. So you wanted to talk about the nature of belief or nature of disbelief?
Well, yeah, almost a little bit of both.
Okay.
I think, we talk a lot about epistemology, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is pretty much, it's definitionally the study of belief. So I think it's kind of useful through that lens that we actually have a definition of belief and a further understanding of what it means to hold a belief.
Sure. I personally define belief as that which I accept to be true.
Okay.
How do you define it?
Well, it's fairly close towards that. But I think as an addendum, I've also looked at the nature of its of the material reality of belief.
What do you mean?
Well, kind of in a sense of how does it exist in the mind? Like, what is it? Like, what are we talking about?
I don't know if I would call that epistemology at that point. I think that would get a little bit more into ontology. What is?
Well,
do you know what I mean?
I'm not this. I understand what you mean here. That, yeah, this is, whenever we're talking about it in terms of epistemology, it is purely in the idealistic. But I don't think we can necessarily understand the idealistic without understanding its relation to the materialistic.
Well, hit us. I'm really curious.
Well, whenever I think about belief, there is certainly a concept where it's related to thought, to concepts, to the metaphysical. But the fact that it has a relationship towards us kind of suggests that it has, something else that's very, well, I'm trying to think about this.
Can I ask maybe a clarifying question that might help direct this a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a pretty good idea.
Yeah, because I'm super curious about this. Are you talking specifically about, like, if we were to ask somebody to describe a belief that they held while they were in an MRI machine, like, are you talking about what would pop up in their brain, like what would light up? Or are you talking about, like, beliefs themselves as self-contained existent things that we're accessing?
Oh, yeah, it's much more the latter, where it's something that is connected towards actual events that are happening, the way we're feeling, the things that have an unquestionable material reality towards them, and how they kind of interconnect and help us define.
Okay.
Well, it helps us give us a sense of what we're talking about.
Sure. So in my mind, when I think about this kind of a thing, I look at a computer, and when I see a program on a computer, I know that the program's there. I can access it, and I know that it is stored in ones and zeros on my hard drive. But it's kind of curious when you when you talk about the program in the computer versus, working in the program. So what kind of point did you want to make? I know we're kind of circling it, but what did you want to talk to about it? Talk with us with it in regards to.
Well, well, if we can possibly, because there's so much about the idea of material reality belief, about what we can and possibly can talk about. There's also the relationship that I have towards the idea of having a lack of that belief and what that means for us,
Okay.
us as atheists.
So what is it? It sounds like you're giving us a lot of preamble to what?
Well,
To what end?
well, to what end? I think whenever we talk about belief and a lack thereof, there's kind of a sense that it's something that we've constructed intentionally. Like, oh, that's something that we believe, we hold it, it's something that we control, but it might not actually be. It might be much more a condition of our environment, and a much more so the effect of society on us as well.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, with that part, at least, I don't know where we're going from here, but yeah, I don't think we are in control of what we believe until that belief is changed and we decide to pursue that, right? Like when I was a Christian, I didn't have a choice about whether or not I believed. I just did. That was the environment I grew up in. It was real to that group of people. So being part of that group, that was just kind of the default. And then the only choice I made was to follow that intuition out. But the actual change of mind wasn't an intentional thing so much. So yeah, if you're talking about people who believe certain things because it's a given in that culture, the reason we think Noah's Ark is any less fantastical than any other, religious myth about a big flood, then yeah, absolutely, I think you're right. Are you saying that we can judge whether or not those beliefs are accurate based on, I don't know, where are you going from here?
Yeah, I'm super curious, Andrew, but it doesn't have a lot of direction. Can you help us out?
Yeah. Well, when I was thinking about that and looking that up and trying to parse that, there is this one study that's kind of trying to, I think, give some type of basis towards that. Well, it's not even a study; it's a paper that's collective of studies.
Towards what?
The origins of this paper is called the Origins of Religious Disbelief,
Okay.
and I'm just referencing it as a concept
Sure.
here. Just kind of to give myself some degree of data to work off of.
About what? I'm still curious about what
it-
we're talking about in the subject of this conversation. We're, about 8
Oh,
minutes
yes,
in.
Okay, can I read the abstract?
Yeah,
I
it's a
just
little
pulled up
bit.
the paper, and it might help
Oh,
us
okay.
guide this a little bit.
Okay, cool.
All right, so the paper
Yeah.
is published in the National Library of Medicine, called The Origins of Religious Disbelief. This was in 2013. The abstract says, although most people are religious, there are hundreds of millions of religious disbelievers in the world. What is religious disbelief and how does it arise? Recent developments in the scientific study of religious beliefs and behaviors point to the conclusion that religious disbelief arises from multiple interacting pathways traceable to cognitive, motivational, and cultural learning mechanisms. We identify 4 such pathways leading to 4 distinct forms of atheism, which we term mind-blind atheism. Ooh, that sounds like a band name. Apatheism, incredulous atheism, and analytic atheism. Religious belief and disbelief share the same underlying pathways and can be explained within a single evolutionary framework that is grounded in both genetic and cultural evolution.
Yeah.
That sounds interesting. I definitely want to read this paper.
I mean, when you're talking about belief in anything, it's absolutely grounded in all of those things. And so the fact that it's phrased about that makes it sound like it's exclusive to religious belief and disbelief, when in fact it has to do with everything.
Well, I think it's just a function of being, contained in your research. So I doubt that it would be like, this only applies to this. But it sounds like what they're saying is you can come to a belief or a lack of belief through multiple different pathways, including just not being aware of it or analyzing it and coming away with a different conclusion.
Or not caring about it at all.
Right. So is that what you're saying? Like there are different ways of believing or disbelieving things?
Oh, yeah. If you go down the paper, it actually shows very interesting correlation that the what they call dual inheritance approach, or just dual inheritance, actually tends to be a bigger predictor as to why a person would become a non-believer, non-religious person.
I guess what I'm kind of where I'm kind of out of the, help me out here. Why, why should I care? Why is this important? Why is this meaningful to talk about?
Important?
Yeah, why is this meaningful for us to talk about?
Well, that one issue, the one thing that seems to be a higher predictor of it, it's talking about how it doesn't seem to be that people are self-reflecting as to why. People aren't going back into their life and really thinking, oh, does this concept make sense? They're more as to why they become non-religious. They're more so becoming non-religious, or in terms of what's influencing them, or seemingly is their lack of exposure or proper exposure towards a religious concept that helps, that would help reinforce belief in something like a god or something else.
But that really, I can imagine that being true for other people, but that runs contrary to our lived experience, because we were deeply, deeply exposed to a religious childhood, religious growing up, and tons of indoctrination.
Indecently exposed to Christianity. I think there's an interesting. I think that there are definitely ways that this could be spun to make it reasonable, and I would have to read the paper. I'll link it in the description of this call so everybody has access to it. But I also think that that's kind of the case with all belief, right? Like, there are beliefs that we have because we've analyzed things, for sure, but that does make up a smaller subsection of just the things we don't believe because we don't have access to the correct information, right? Like, do we have free will? I don't know. It's not because I've analyzed a thing and come to a conclusion that I disbelieve in a thing. It's because there's really no way to know, and I haven't gotten the evidence yet. So it kind of falls in line with agnosticism in my mind. Again, though, Andrew, my question for you is, what are you doing with this paper that made you want to call? Is this something that you are struggling with? Is this something that you're seeing Christians run with as like an example of, well, you just haven't seen all of the data? Or like, what about this paper made you want to call us today?
Well, it made me think about my own history, because I was also a religious person before I became an atheist, and it really made me question whether or not I was really changing my mind because I came to a logical conclusion, or did I just have a history where I thought I had a devout, belief, and in actuality, I just, didn't. I just had I was allowed to read the right kind of books that would make me an atheist, or I was allowed to, not go to church enough times to not be an atheist. Just whether or not what's that?
What I was going to say is, it sounds like you're moving into an axiom. You're talking about what ought to be a good reason. And so let's say you are an atheist because you were never exposed to religion whatsoever. Right? So you never had the chance to evaluate it and decide whether or not it's true. You're an atheist because you don't believe that thing. Do you think that's valid? Because it sounds like you're questioning whether or not it's valid to disbelieve for that reason. When, in fact, when we're just talking about what is, there are lots of reasons people disbelieve. But if you're talking about the axiom of the things that I believe I should get to that by evaluating the evidence, by being given every opportunity to understand and then make an educated choice. That is one way to get there, but it sounds like it's just saying that there are lots of ways people get to other beliefs. So when you're talking about that, kind of what's in my mind is like, it sounds like Andrew's gatekeeping themselves, is Andrew saying, oh, well, because maybe I didn't learn enough, did I not get enough of an opportunity to make an educated choice? But whether you did or not, you're still an atheist. You just may have gotten there through a venue that you feel is less valid. Does that sound about right? Because that's kind of what that's cluing me into.
It does. I sometimes I wonder if a lot of people would avoid calling themselves an atheist because they just see themselves so differently. Like, oh, well, I just need to find God still. Or
Oh,
something.
yeah. I think V and I both went through that phase when we were deconverting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is no one right way to become an atheist. That's something that I've held to since leaving the faith myself. And there are people who I would even say, hey, if you don't want to be a part of the church, you don't have to. You don't even have to be an atheist. It doesn't have to be a matter of disbelief. You can just stop being a Christian if you want to. So there's definitely this level of, well, you need to prove that you did all of the work and all of the homework. Show your homework, show your work to prove that you are actually an atheist or that you came here for the right reasons, you know? And that is a function of being not a second class, but like it happens with a lot of different groups, right? Like if you deviate from the norm, then you have to prove to the norm that you are justifiably different. And that happens across the board, and atheism does suffer from that as well. And a lot of that is internalized, because if we all three of us came from a religious background where we internalize this idea that, well, if you leave, you better have a darn good reason for it, because otherwise, you know, you're betraying your faith or you're making a mistake, then we will carry that forward. And I know I have. So yeah, I'm going to read this paper. I'm going to look into it a little bit more, and I would encourage our viewers to do so as well. It will be linked.
Sorry.
But my point here is that this one paper cannot tell you were doing this right or wrong. If you had an experience that made you an atheist, if God himself came down to you and said, I do not exist, therefore you no longer get to have faith, and took that faith away from you, you're an atheist now. That's just the definition of that thing, right? So don't worry too much about questioning how you got here. Now that you're here, what are you going to do with it?
And on top of that, really, I mean, I kind of want to push back on that just a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that a big piece of the thrust of this show is called Skeptic Generation, you know, and we want to promote skepticism. And so any avenues in which we're able to apply skepticism, we value those things. If you did not get to the conclusions you came to through skepticism, that's okay. But it sounds like you're applying skepticism right now and going, okay, well, you know, maybe I got here for a bad reason, or maybe, you know, I could have a flawed way in the way I'm thinking about things. And that is admirable for you to do. You know, apply that skepticism. And if it gets you excited, then learn and study and just dive right into it. Because the important thing for us, we encourage skepticism because it is applicable everywhere, not just in religious talks, but in everything you do in your life. It is such a useful tool. And if you're wanting to apply skepticism there, that's fantastic. But while you're doing that, don't undercut yourself. Because if you are the kind of person who's likely to look at your world and go, what if I'm wrong? What if, you know, it could be another way? Then the more you explore and learn about the world around you, the better informed you're going to be, and the better you're going to be at, you know, justifying those views if anyone ever brings that up. And that's fantastic. You know, it's a skill set that you're growing, and that's wonderful, but don't undercut yourself in the meantime.
That's a really good point.
Well, yeah. I do really sympathize with, I think, everybody who's going through the process. I feel like I'm kind of emotionally outside of the process at this point. Like, it doesn't affect me in a way that really could upset me. But certainly lots of people are going through a pretty tough time with that. And whenever I look at it, I if I feel like, oh, I have reasons to believe, I'll be okay, I believe. But I currently don't see any reason to believe, so I'm kind of dispassionately atheist at this point. Before I was very passionate.
I when you get to a certain point in it, I call it apatheism. It sounds like the study calls it apatheism as well, which is amazing. It's the first time I ever heard it referenced like that. But that's okay. And I encourage you to continue on the journey. Hopefully this conversation has been useful. I know that it's definitely been useful for us. It's fun to kind of explore those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Andrew, thank you so much for calling in. We appreciate you.
Sure. Thanks.
Take care.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Yeah.
Starting out academic today.
It is. It is. Do we want to keep on the academic and talking about agnosticism, or do we want to dive into someone who saw you on the show and wants to follow up?
I think I would like to tie this into agnosticism a little bit more because we're kind of running on that. But
okay. Then let's do
absolutely,
it.
I want to talk to Ryan as well.
Okay, then let's start off with Moldred. Moldred in New York wants to discuss definitions of agnosticism and doubt of other ideas and philosophies. Moldred, you're live with Eric and V.
Oh, hi. You the Lord of Hosts?
The what?
The Lord of Hosts. As they said, keep on the line till the host talks to you. But all right, let's get to the subject. Last week I sent a super chat about my goal in life is to convince people to be agnostic about everything.
Okay.
And you used one definition of agnostic that different from what I do, which is my definitions of agnostic are sort of in the same line as skepticism and doubt.
Okay.
Basically, what I meant was I learned how to use maybe logic, and I want to encourage other people to also use maybe logic, which is,
admirable.
Never accept anything. What?
I said it's
never
admirable.
accept anything to be 100% one thing or 100% another thing, but always work in possibilities.
Yeah, that's skepticism. I absolutely agree, and
That's skepticism, yeah.
we encourage people to be skeptics. You disagree about the definition of agnosticism, though. How do you define agnosticism?
Doubt that you can ever know everything, or you can ever know anything 100%.
Okay, how do you use agnosticism as a separate word from skepticism? Because that's has a lot to do with skepticism.
No, they are different.
I know, but I'm asking.
They are different. When I use skepticism, I'm sort of defining it as being what's the best way to put it? Withholding accepting anything to be true. Agnosticism, I would define as just doubting anything is 100%. Well, I consider skepticism saying, well, I'll wait till there's definite proof before I even accept it to be like 0.0001%. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I get that, but I kind of want to push back because I feel like we can use those definitions in better ways. When I talk about agnosticism, the reason I talk about it as, defining as something as unknowable is because I find myself having more conversations where that's a useful definition. There are people who will say, oh, hey, how do you know that you're not in the Matrix? How do you know you're not a brain in a vat or a jar or, and everything around you is an illusion? Well, I'm agnostic to that. Why am I agnostic to that? Because I don't think that is knowable. It is not a testable claim. And because it is completely unfalsifiable, for me, the way I use the word agnostic, I say that I'm agnostic to that. I view it as something that I have no way of knowing. There is no possible way to determine whether or not that's true. And so that's why I use the word agnostic to mean that, because I find that in conversations, words like skepticism and doubt and atheist suffice.
Yes, but can you be 100% sure that it's not, that anything is not true?
Well, that's just application of skepticism, isn't it?
That's the application. Well, maybe what you call skepticism is what I call maybe logic.
I think logic is not a maybe this is that, maybe that. Yeah, logic is something you can take a course in.
Not just logic, but maybe logic. Maybe logic is an idea that was put forward by people like, I don't know, 70s, 80s, something like that. Kind of a
yeah, Moldred, you got to understand. For us,
Aristotelian Discordian concept.
Got it. But here's the thing: if you're using definitions of words that are steeped in references to things that we haven't read or don't have access to, or if you're assuming that other people have read and have access to that information ahead of time for them to be able to use the word the same way, I think that's poor communication.
The definition is available. You just have to Google it, Bing it, look it up, whatever.
Well, we do. When we talk about logic, though, that's not what we're talking about. But when you talk about maybe logic...
Not logic, maybe logic.
Yeah.
But logic is something totally different.
This sounds like Terry Pratchett speak.
It really does. Are you? I'm looking up maybe logic right now, and what I'm seeing is a 2003 documentary about Robert Anton Wilson. Is this what you're talking about?
Exactly. That's the guy. That's the guy who came up with the idea of maybe logic. And I met him. I shared a couple of beers with him. I went to some of his lectures when he was in New York, and I miss him. I'd love to know what he would think of what's going on in the world today.
Well, so this, while that's really
interesting. This person
interesting.
sounds interesting. A guerilla ontologist, psychedelic magician, outer head of the Illuminati, and quantum psychologist.
Oh, God, that sounds awful. But maybe that's just marketing.
He and Bill Schnoebelen could get together and have a beer or something.
Yeah, seriously.
Oh, gosh.
He was a fantastic person.
I guess
I would suggest you should try.
Well,
I would suggest reading some of his books.
Moldred, here's the thing, though, man. If you want to get into having this conversation, talking about the definition of agnosticism is a really circuitous way to do that.
Yeah.
Because we need to have a common understanding of something like that to be able to discuss it. But if you're using definitions that we don't know and referencing things that we haven't read about, and then are like going in that direction, is it's not a productive way to have a conversation. If instead you wanted to say, hey, I want to talk about Discordianism, and I specifically want to talk about this concept of maybe logic and why maybe logic is useful or fun or interesting to check out, that could be a much better way to enter into a conversation about this.
Okay.
Yeah, but
you want to go that route? All right.
Well, no, I don't. But I do want to give you a better way to enter into having this conversation, because the way that we started here, it says in you told our call screeners, or at least they put in the show notes, that you want to discuss definitions of agnosticism and doubt of other ideas and philosophies. And it sounds like where you really wanted to go was talking about other definitions and concepts that we're going to need to do some research on. So how about this, Moldred? V and I, we've got a lot on our plate right now, but if we have the opportunity, we'll look into it. And if we do get to look into it, then maybe we can talk about it in a way that everyone can benefit from later.
And I will link the concept of maybe logic in the description.
That way people who are watching, if they're interested.
So if anybody's interested in looking into that more, they can do that from the show notes.
V, I appreciate that. Moldred, how's that sound?
That sounds great. Is there any way I can send you some of Robert Anton Wilson's books?
So here's the thing.
One called Cosmic Triggers.
Moldred, I might have time for a video But if you send me the book,
all right.
I don't want you to waste the postage, and I don't want to promise something that I may not be able to fulfill on, because that's not nice on my part. So I just want to be honest with you.
But if you do want to send us things that can be sent over email, then you can contact us. It's contactskepticgeneration@gmail.com, and that goes directly to us.
Yeah. Mordred, thank you so much for calling.
I'll send you some YouTube videos with Robert Anton Wilson.
Okay, try and find ones that are concise and to the point, because if they need to find, agnosticism as an entryway into the conversation, I might wind up skipping past until we get to the meat. But in the meantime, Moldred, thank you so much for calling.
Okay, yeah, thank you for taking my call.
Absolutely. I'm confused.
Me too.
Here's the thing, like I get the concept of Discordianism. Like I get the concept behind it. And to me, it strikes me the same way as the flying spaghetti monster strikes me, where it's like, okay, like that's fun for you if that's like the thing that you want to dedicate your time to pursuing. Cool. I get that it's making a meta commentary about religion or the development of mythology or epistemology. That's really cool. But when you are having conversations with people who are not part of that group, you really, really need to make sure that you're using language that we can understand, or at least prefacing new definitions with, hey, this is a new definition. So I'm going to describe this thing for you now and then see what you think about it, right?
Yeah, I mean, being honest interlocutors means that we are genuinely listening to and interacting with the ideas that you're putting forward. And we are taking what you're saying as honest, that to the best of your ability, what you're saying is true, is what you believe to be true, and all of that. So the best way to respect that is to make sure that we have the tools to be able to engage with you in that way. Otherwise, we're just talking past each other. All right, so it's interesting. We've got several callers from people who have seen us doing guest appearances elsewhere.
One of them is the person we guested on, so
yeah,
that's fun.
Well, let's start with Ryan. Ryan was waiting for a little while longer. Ryan in Utah saw you on an episode, guesting on an episode of a show called Miracles and Atheists, and he wanted to follow up on your comments about human trafficking in college.
Okay, Ryan, welcome to the show.
Yeah.
Hi, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hi. So first of all, thanks for everything that you guys are doing. I think this is a great project you have with
Thank
your show,
you.
and I appreciate what you're all doing.
Yay.
The reason I called was I was listening to V on the Miracles and Atheists, and sorry, I'm a little nervous, but
Nah, you're totally cool.
I thought, thanks. I thought you did a great job. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you.
But during the conversation, you just kind of barely touched on this idea of human trafficking, and I was a little surprised at your take. You didn't get into it in much detail, so I don't really know where you're coming from, but you mentioned something about, like, if I remember correctly, near your college there was a trafficking ring or something, and people would go missing frequently?
Not frequently, but there were a couple of different concerns that I had when I was working as a student journalist at my undergraduate college. One of them was that the area where the college was located was known in the state for being very high in terms of human trafficking. So it was known that one town over was pretty well documented by people who were looking for it, that it was, people would go there to specifically participate in human trafficking. And the problems that I had with the school very specifically pertained to, it was an open campus, so anybody could walk in. And there were a couple of instances where actually it was a problem because people would be stalked, or people who were former students would threaten to blow buildings up, and there were like police cars on the campus quite often. So it was dangerous, and the issue, I don't really remember how exactly it tied into my conversation on miracles and atheists, except that, hey, it really does still happen. It happened a town over when I was in college, and there were stories that I heard from friends and people who came both before and after me that made me doubt that the focus was on protecting people as much as it should be. But I'm curious where we're going with this.
Oh, yeah. So, I guess when I hear people talking about human trafficking, I understand that it happens and it's terrible. But it does kind of raise a red flag because it's the kind of rhetoric I hear from like QAnon people and stuff about like, and satanic panic people about like
Got it.
hundreds of thousands of kids go
Right.
missing every
Yeah.
year and that sort of thing. So.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess there's a skeptical angle of like when I hear that, like I don't know, or if you hear something else like that from someone who, in general, you respect, like, what's your method for like? Do you take that information in, or do you like ask, like, well, can you show me
Right.
severity, or like give me some evidence or something,
Yeah, for sure. And I think that that's one of the most dangerous things that people like QAnon do, which is they take a real issue and then they twist it beyond recognition and make it synonymous with their stance or their movement. And then it makes it a lot harder to actually talk about when those things happen in real life. So it does happen in real life, and you can go to, I'll link some places in the description as well where you can look for that. Look for information from FBI and local police stations and all of this. But the problem comes in, and this is actually something that Eric talked a lot about on his appearance on Miracles and Atheists, is when does raising a concern about something that might not be very well known turn into a conspiracy theory? And that's when you should start seeing those red flags, right? That's when that becomes something that's a lot more concerning, because it involves things like the whole government is involved and nobody knows about it, or
All
there's
police
a
officers
reason
are lying about
right, or there's a reason that this happened in this way because they're trying to throw us off the scent of this other incredible thing, So like
journalists refuse to report this because they're wanting to hide the conspiracy as well.
right. If it involves like underground governments co-opting the individual's lives, like probably you're dealing with somebody who needs a little reality check. But it's good always to ask for sources, and it's good always to ask that next question. Well, how did you know about this? Where did you hear about this? So you can do your own research. I remember my sister is currently studying abroad. Not studying abroad. She's not a student anymore. She is abroad. And she is working at a place where there's a lot of human trafficking where she is working. And I needed to do some research myself because she's a missionary. And I was like, how much of this is actually human trafficking, which would be good to address and stop? And how much of this is equating human trafficking with just other forms of sex work, which, we shouldn't be doing.
Right.
And so, yeah, I did the same thing that you did. I heard that claim. There's a lot of this thing happening in this area. And then I went through and I looked at, local law enforcement reports on that area and stats gathered from outside sources that rate how safe areas are for certain groups of people. And I was able to draw my own conclusion from there. So absolutely do your own research, ask more questions. And if you start feeling like that little red flag of, oh, well, they don't want you to know, then you can start to maybe back away from that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think that addresses what I was thinking. I was just kind of curious. You didn't touch on it too much in the show, so I didn't know where exactly you're coming from there.
I'm secretly QAnon.
No, please no. Please no, don't start that. Please no, don't start that.
Yeah, that would be a real surprise.
From what I saw...
and I think it's one of those things where it's... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, Ryan, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna comment. It seems like one of those things where it's so horrific that it's easy to overestimate the danger when you. It's like the stranger danger thing. The idea of someone like taking your kid is so horrific that you sort of overestimate that danger and underestimate other.
Yeah.
Other types
Oh,
of
absolutely.
dangers.
Absolutely. In fact, the more you look into it, the more you realize that things like stranger danger, while you should be aware of where your child is, and there are those people who, have had that experience, most of these cases are people that they already know who are taking advantage of them. And it doesn't even mean they disappear, right? It's not even like, oh, there was somebody on campus and then they disappeared and no one ever saw them again. It's, oh, they go out sometimes and nobody knows where they are and they come back and they don't look so great. So like it's very much more nuanced when you look at actual data about who is actually struggling with this and being victimized. So yeah, absolutely. There's this glamour, like not glamorous, but like horror story level of like, and they never saw them again. But most of it is actually just people being taken advantage of in their day-to-day lives.
Yeah, definitely. I think even here in Utah, there was a high-profile case of a student who was sadly murdered by an ex-boyfriend. And so, like, the campus safety issue is a real problem.
Oh, we could go on and on about campus safety, but I don't want to get slapped with a lawsuit from my previous college. But yeah, Ryan, thank you for calling in and asking, because that's all we want to do is we want to make sure that if you have more questions about something that we say, call and ask.
And especially if we say something stupid and and you want to, find out, like, yeah, call us out.
Okay, well, no, it wasn't stupid.
No worries.
Thank you.
Ryan, take care.
Bye.
Okay.
Yeah, from what I remember in that conversation, you probably could have gone a lot more into it, but you were kind of following the hosts in the direction that they were taking things. And so I could imagine that if you were to try to give more information about that, it would have been against the flow of the conversation that they were trying to push,
Oh yeah, well, it's a function of a conversation that happens in real time where you go off on a tangent and then you're like, oh, that's not what I was supposed to be talking about based on where you want to go with this. But it's good that Ryan called in.
I agree. All right. So then Isaiah in South Korea is actually the person who had both of us at different times on their show. We did 2 guest appearances. Isaiah wants to talk about how to be self-assertive in a conversation without walking over other people. Isaiah, you're live with Eric and V.
Yeah, thank you guys. Actually, first and foremost, did you guys enjoy your copies that I sent you?
Yes, thank you so much.
We did. Thank you.
And actually, I have to send a very big apology to V because I accidentally misgendered you twice and I bleeped it out. And so I apologize. It was a genuine, serious mistake.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. That's very thoughtful of you.
Yeah, I used a profanity bleep word. So anyway,
I like
you
it.
Can't hear it.
That's a fun way to deal with
I
that.
got the day half the time, and then the other half, it was just I was in the moment, and then and I didn't even realize it until afterwards. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I just need a slight bit of patience in explaining this. So just please a little bit of patience, okay?
All right, go for it.
Because so I grew up like a minister's kid, okay? And so my parents would adopt like these kids. In fact, one of them who was, it's funny, that last guy was calling in because that whole satanic panic started off like in Bakersfield, California. And one of the boys who was forced to testify and lie, was actually came to our house. But anyway, point is that my parents are ministers and I was just kind of really shy. And one of those guys, for example, would constantly hook up with my girlfriends. Okay. So I had no ability to confront him about it. I mean, he just walked all over me like I was a doormat,
Aww.
And so this persisted on for a really, really long time in my life. And when I came here to South Korea, a girl I was dating, she got me a book about how to be assertive. And it was teaching a lot of things in there about maintaining your cool, clearly explaining both sides of what's going to happen if this issue is not addressed. But all that, so I learned how to be assertive, and I learned that being assertive is a fine line. It's a line between being walked over and being like obnoxious and arrogant and pushy. Okay, so that's the context. Okay, so just today in South Korea, there's a lot of corona cases going on, and the church that I work with was violating all of these protocols that and putting kids' lives in danger. And when I try to confront them with this, and even using the Bible, the guy just started laughing at me and just blowing me off. And I lost it. I started screaming and yelling, and even used a lot of profanities because I was so furious that they were putting these kids in danger, and then they were laughing at me about it. So this question is very specifically to Eric, because Eric is one of the most non-intimidating, intimidating people I've seen online, because
that's a good way to put that.
He has no. It's like he could own someone without ever, like, in a whisper voice, and I couldn't do that because that would cause me. So how do you do that? How do you control yourself? I'm sorry, that was a lot of.
No, that was
background story.
First of all, before Eric jumps in,
I need advice.
Eric needs a moment to compose himself because he's feeling very shy right now.
Ooh,
but
Oh.
Isaiah, that was a really well constructed lead into your question. So thank you for that, and also thank you for asking this question, especially in the way that you are, for the purpose that you are, to protect kids as people are acting negligently towards them. So yeah, thank you for calling in. Eric, take it away.
Okay, well, so there are, could you turn up my volume just a little bit? Thank you. Okay, geez, Isaiah, I hate to tell you, but there are kind of two Erics. There's the Eric on the show, and then there's the Eric in real life. And yeah, the Eric on the show is the guy who wears the jacket, you know, and it's kind of and it took a long time to kind of develop this and to develop myself. And because of that, I have a lot more confidence because I feel like I'm kind of wearing a version of myself, you know? And so if I were to be in your shoes, I can't guarantee that I would be better. In fact, I probably might not be. And the things that I would need to recognize is that ever since I was a kid, I'm just going to share way more about myself than I thought I ever would on this show. But ever since I was a kid, you know, I was lucky enough in my early teens to be put into therapy, and something that my therapy
Lucky you.
Yeah, I'm very, 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 very lucky for that. Yeah, one of the things that I learned is that most of my upset happens over things that I don't have control over. And that's the case for most people. People feel angry and upset when they see something that they want to change and cannot change that thing. And so the first thing to do is to put it into a better perspective, right? When I do the show, the perspective I have is I want to have these conversations, and I want to be the version of me that can be useful and helpful and provide those kinds of tools and examples for other people. But in my day-to-day life, when I look at it, I go, okay, what are my limitations? Isaiah, you cannot take responsibility for what the shitty things those people are doing. You know, you can't take responsibility for the consequences of other people's actions. As much as you want to, as infuriating as it is, it's not fair to Isaiah. And so the first thing to do is to set an expectation and go, the only person I have control over is myself. And everything past that needs to be in that context. And so you don't have the ability to reach into these other people's brains and make them. Gosh, I wish you could. I really wish that was a skill.
Hold on. Let me chime in for a second.
Yeah.
I actually am reporting them tomorrow because
good.
I mean, they literally, I uploaded one of my sermons and they asked me to take it down because they said, oh, well, they got this corona thing going on. So they were more upset about me uploading one of my sermons than them actually keeping these kids safe. And I explained it to the guy, and I explained it. I pointed him to the Bible where it says that we need to follow the laws of the land, you know. And you and I talked about this, about differences between Korea and American law, and about why that tells me I can't endorse Christianity as a Christian in America, you know, because I would be violating the Constitution. So anyway, this situation, I was very, very upset with myself, though, because I dropped a lot of profanities. I insulted the guy personally. I yelled in his face. I could have about killed somebody. Honestly.
Isaiah?
I was so furious.
As a third party who's hearing about this, it sounds like that guy fucking deserved it. Like, it's okay, man. You know, if you lost your temper, if you lost your cool, recognizing that it happened and going, hey, you know what? Okay, what am I going to do moving forward? But guilting yourself after the fact is only going to have so much use. You know, if you're going to motivate yourself to increase the patience and empathy in conversations moving forward, fantastic. If it's meant to just kind of self-flagellate, it's okay.
I'm going to take this entire clip, record it on my phone, and play it back at you at regular intervals.
I know, because I do this to myself all of the time.
All the time. Yeah, Isaiah, there's a level of learning from a unfortunate occurrence, right, that we can take forward. Are we thinking now in terms of what to do next? It sounds like you're spot on in that, hey, there are going to be times where confronting the individual is not even going to be the best way forward, right? Definitely have an initial conversation, but if you can go report them for being, being dangerous towards these kids, that's a better and more effective way to do it that puts less pressure on you to be the defender and also is more effective in the long run. So when you're looking at a situation like this, definitely take all of what Eric said into account in terms of how would I go about dealing with this. But a lot of the time it's not on you at all. And all you need to do is figure out who else needs to deal with this and get them in touch, you know?
Yeah. I see. Well, thank you guys very much for your input. I am in love with Eric. I think I try to be. Eric is like I'm going to make a bracelet that says WWED. What would Eric do?
I like it.
And just one last thing to V. I'm asking for forgiveness because the Bible tells me that if I go to present an offering to God and I realize that I've wronged somebody, that I should try to go and make it right. And I even though I can say it was 100% accident, I did do what I could to undo it. But yeah, I am sorry. And so if you have your forgiveness, I would appreciate it.
Absolutely. You know what, Isaiah? You have dealt with that more effectively and honestly and vulnerably than anybody else who has ever misgendered me. And it's not as big a deal to me, but I really do forgive you. That's absolutely, you have my forgiveness there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys so much. And I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Isaiah.
Take care. Thank you for calling.
Bye-bye.
You know, even though we obviously have different religious beliefs, gosh, if everybody was like Isaiah, we wouldn't do a show.
Yeah, no, honestly, like that was really, really sweet. And honestly, the bleep out is a really funny way to do that. I kind of like it a lot. Yeah, it's really cool. Good for Isaiah. I wish him well moving forward.
Yeah, and maybe we can put the link to the interviews in the description for this.
Absolutely. Clip. Although I did make a mistake. I got him and Nick mixed up. That wasn't Nick. That was Isaiah. Isaiah was the person who you were on his podcast. I don't know if it's come out yet because you pre-recorded it. Mm-hmm. So once that's out, we'll link it.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right.
Oh, before we we move on, I know we're coming up on time. We never gave out the number to call the show.
Oh my goodness, we never did we? And because of our intro and our not having our lower third, it's more difficult for people to call the show.
Yep. So
We're gonna
we
have
need
to make sure
to do that.
Yeah, at the beginning of every episode.
The live chat mods have been on top of it with Nightbot, but
because they're amazing.
Because they are amazing.
If you want to call the show and you're in the United States, you can call 585-LaMurph. That's 585-526-8774. Or if you don't want it on your phone bill, if you are international, you want to call for free online, you can go to tiny.cc/callsg. Capital S, capital G for some reason, but tiny.cc/callsg. Or if you're watching on YouTube live, in the banner at the top, there are several links. And one of those links is to call the show. Also, we have call the show links in the description for this. So if you want to call us and talk to us, please do. We'd love to talk to you about what you believe and why. And those are the ways to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, who are we talking to?
Let's talk with David. David's been waiting for a while.
Yeah, David in California wants to talk about, let's see, if language describes reality, how do we comprehend wordless reality?
That's really clunky. If language describes reality, how do we comprehend reality wordlessly? That's more what I was trying to say.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. And I love that question because I was just thinking about that today, actually. I was like, okay, so there are words for... real quick, David, do you have me on in the background or are you on speakerphone? I'm getting a little bit of echo.
Yeah.
No, I'm on a headset with a microphone.
Okay, we'll do our best.
Yeah. So for me, it's really interesting because words do define how we view the world, kind of like our very first caller, asking how much of our belief or lack of belief is culturally influenced. A lot of it is because based on the words that we use, that shapes how we think about things. So when we come up against something that doesn't have a word readily available for it, they can inspire all kinds of concern or even feelings of ick or frustration or fear because it doesn't naturally just like slot into our brain. So it's a really poignant and timely question, I think.
Definitely. I've found that without language for a concept, that concept wasn't really pinned down. It was very fluid and amorphous. And because of that, it was less useful. So I don't know, how do we comprehend reality wordlessly?
There's an example that I would love to talk about, and I'll link this in the description.
Sure. Before we do, though, David, I had an idea. Really quick. Yeah. I want you to give the idea. I have found that sometimes when I'm doing the show, if I'm too close to the microphone, the sound coming from the earbuds will go back through the mic and will create that. And it sounds like as you're moving a little closer or further away or something's going on, but the echo's going away in and out. And I think that might be that just the volume to your ears might be a little loud and might be getting picked up by the mic a bit.
There, I turned it down just a little bit. Is that better?
It is so much better. I think it's gone. Yeah. Okay. Sophie, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The one thing that I do want to point to is the history of how we create colors, right? So back during ancient Greece, right, when Homer was writing the Odyssey, they didn't have the word for blue. They did not describe anything that should be blue, like the sky or the ocean or someone's eyes, as blue. They described it as black, essentially, or shades of black. And that's how they perceived blue, as just a different shade of black, until the word blue was invented. And then everybody was like, oh, that describes that's part of the color spectrum. And then it became normal to describe things as blue. And then the same thing happens with green and with red, right, and yellow. These colors that we come up with are not creating the color spectrum, right? That spectrum exists and people perceive it regardless. But there are definitely things that we are missing because we don't have words for it, like orange, right? There is no real color orange. It's all just shades of brown, but we created this word.
Or is brown just dark orange?
Right, exactly. So like we have these conversations and they're fun, but it only helps us comprehend and kind of interpret what is actually already there, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Or maybe you're already seeing and comprehending most of the things around you, but without the language, you're not able to put a finger on it.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Exactly.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it. Yeah, I figured this would be a short call.
No, it's okay. I mean, it's really, really interesting. When you're talking about language, you're talking about a tool used to describe reality. And so, there are lots of languages that aren't verbal. There are, what the point of language is to describe things. And so without any kind of language, it's not that it's invisible, right? It's not like the color orange was invisible until we came up with a word for it. Mm-hmm. We just weren't able to put a finger on it as clearly as when we finally did.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, part of this is partially like, for instance, the Inuits. They have so many words for the word snow,
Yep.
whereas we have snow, But I was also kind of thinking about the small mouth noises that create language and foreign languages, But the word list came up from, I tried to imagine anything that I couldn't use a word for, and I couldn't come up with anything. But I like, but that's that. I mean, it just seems to me that the small mouth noises that makes up reality for just about everybody is like, well, you said it.
Yeah, it's a really mind trippy thing to think about.
It is.
And then it also makes you think about things like, if you want to take this one step forward into things like advocacy, how important it is to make sure that we are raising children who have the ability to comprehend as much as possible in terms of reading and writing and speaking, because what you can think, like exactly what you said, you cannot conceive of a thing you cannot already have a word for or name. And so the more limited your vocabulary, whether that's intentionally through indoctrination or whether that's just a lack of education resources, it really becomes an issue of that person's reality is smaller, right? That person does not get to experience as much. And so it really does become a larger conversation. But David, this was a great call.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, David. Take care.
You too. Love you guys.
Bye.
Aw, shucks. Aw, color's been so nice today. I'm happy about that. All right. Ooh, this is an interesting call. So let's talk to Elle in Arizona. In the notes, it says, former vampire sex cultist would like to debunk Bill's claims for miracles and atheists. Elle, are you kidding?
Hi.
Hi.
I am unfortunately not kidding. I know it sounds like a troll call, but I was actually in a vampiric sex cult there was a crazy person. I don't like to use that because everyone's struggling with different things, but we did have a leader. She did cut open my arms to suck my blood. That's a long story. I still have the scars. They're now covered by tattoos.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh.
No, this really happened. I wish it didn't. I'm not yet ready to, I guess, tell my full name and stuff, but I have talked about this on other atheist shows under different, pseudonyms.
Yeah.
But I got really frustrated with that guy because he clearly still believed all of it. And I don't think I can explain everything he said. Firstly, because it was such a gish galop.
Oh, yeah.
But secondly, if you want to know how people get into that, or how people can think that there are these higher order circles, I think I can explain a little bit of how he came to these ideas.
Please do, and then I have questions for you afterwards, like so many questions.
Wait, yeah, no. I figured I feel bad now that I realize you guys were on time. I meant to call in for a while, and I figured you might want to ask me things for a little bit. Hold on, let me just plug in my phone so I don't lose you.
Okay, in the meantime, no worries. In the meantime, while you plug that in, I'll let people know what we're talking about specifically.
That might be a good idea.
Yeah, I was brought on as a guest to a show called Miracles and Atheists, where a gentleman named Bill Schnebelin was also guesting, and we had a conversation together. He said he'd never spoken to an atheist, but he also was a contributor to the Satanic Panic, perpetuating these vicious, untrue rumors of, things like hardcore satanic groups kidnapping and murdering adults, children, and pets, and doing horrible things to them other than just murdering them regularly, and that the entire government was in a conspiracy to hide this fact, that there is a higher order of secret government that really rules the world, that there is magic, which he spells with a K, that magic really existed, and that when he spoke about vampirism, he wasn't talking about people who fetishized drinking blood, or even that people were convinced that it gave them some kind of powers, but he was convinced that he had magical powers, that he lived for a year consuming only communion wafers and blood. That instead of becoming a werewolf, he could have been a werewolf, but he decided to choose to be a vampire. And that is just the tip of the iceberg. But I'm really glad that you called in. You were in a vampiric sex cult. So yeah, give us what you want, and then I want to ask a couple questions.
Okay, so the first thing you have to keep in mind with these is that there's always one person who is sort of the leader of one of these groups. Now, the one that I was in, kind of, as you know, in cult documentaries where they talk about how people become unsatisfied with a leader and then someone usurps them, or they become just a figurehead.
Yeah.
That can happen in a cult of any size. So we had a few leadership changes, and by the third one, I was super out. But
yeah,
the first thing you need is somebody who is very strong-willed in terms of abusiveness, I would guess, because you can be strong-willed without being abusive. But you need a leader, basically. You need somebody who's going to rope people in. Mm-hmm. And you need vulnerable kids, basically. Because when this started, I think I was 14 or 15. So basically, you need a leader, and you need people who are vulnerable and really are not receiving answers from another part of their life. Mm-hmm. So I didn't have a great family situation at home. And I was also experiencing some medical stuff, which I will get into because it is relevant. I get chronic migraines. I'll start with that. I get the kind where you can have this thing called visual snow, which is basically like before you get your migraine, you get weird, your visual field goes wonky.
Yeah.
And I was a teenager, and it's really common. Like if you look this up, it's super common. Like you just Google it, visual snow or migraine, and It pops up, and it's harmless. But I didn't know what was happening to me, and I was terrified because I was a teen who was just starting to experience these things that no one else around me could see. Mm-hmm. And so I went to the doctor, and the doctor was like, "It's all in your head. You need therapy," which is the wrong thing to say. That's not the answer. That's not the answer. But the message I got from that is, you are either crazy or there's something else going on. And so I was desperate, and the real answer was neither. It's just an easy to treat medical condition. But I was desperate and alone, and I didn't have any friends, basically. Mm-hmm. And I would have believed anything that gave me that answer. So when I ran into a bunch of other girls who was like, who are like, you have magic powers, come join us in saving the world from evil Satan or whatever.
Yeah,
or
you
not
get pulled
evil
right
Satan.
in.
It was like, you get pulled right in.
I mean, anytime that you
So-
have, the promise of, of power, especially for people who are who feel powerless, the promise of secret knowledge to people who feel like they're not connected, all of those things are incredibly appealing.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I was young and vulnerable, and I took it hook, line, and sinker. And so it started out as kind of like a little coven. We would do like kind of neo-pagan rituals. We were convinced that our favorite books were actually like alternate dimensions.
Yep.
And then I don't think that's too, yeah. So, and then there was the leader, like, I don't know what was up with her. Last I heard from her, she was in an institution, very literally. I still have that letter saved somewhere, but essentially she started, I guess, telling us that we had to do sexual favors, let her drink our blood, or we were all going to lose our powers. She was going to die. The world was going to end, stuff like that.
And when you're in it, yeah.
and when you're in it, and when you have no other explanation, or no other explanation that you feel is safe to accept, because I didn't then have all the answers I do now. You believe it. Like, I can totally see why people who get a cancer diagnosis or any other diagnosis that is just scary to them for whatever reason,
turn to,
would
super
choose-
wooey, just non.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because in the moment, it is less painful. No matter what they put you through, it is less painful because you have this guarantee of safety and eternal life, and there's somebody waiting for you at the end. So this went on for a few years. When the first leader was institutionalized, one of the other members went and actually found a new leader, kind of. And then she roped me back into it.
Elle. So Elle, I think this might need to be a saga.
Do you want me to?
Yeah.
Do you want me to cut this close? Do you want me to cut it short? Because basically, I went to college, went into the hard sciences, found evidence that this is all bullshit and religious psychosis because they were speaking in tongues. I couldn't figure out how to do it. Learned behavior, TLDR. I got myself the fuck out and into a graduate program.
That's so good.
All right.
Good for you.
So TLDR. Sorry.
Oh my
No.
gosh.
TLDR.
That's
I ran
okay.
away and I got a normal explanation for the things I experienced, which was migraines, and now I'm fine.
Oh, that is a harrowing journey. My goodness.
Oh my god.
I have a couple of questions for you. Things that I think are important to get out there for people who are watching, especially people who think that this might be somewhat reasonable.
Yeah.
When you were in this group, you thought that magical powers existed, right?
Yes.
Okay. And now,
Yeah.
after having that experience and investigating it, are you still convinced that those magical powers existed?
No, absolutely not. They never existed. It was, our brains kind of tricking us
Yeah,
because we wanted to be tricked.
absolutely.
It's just like hypnosis. You can't be hypnotized unless you, let
Want
the
it.
hypnotist hypnotize you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the next question. Oh my gosh, I just have, Elle, I have so much. I'm getting in my own
I'm
way.
okay to stay. I'm okay to stay overtime and do your Patreon thing if you want to axe the normal thing or take a break. Like, you
Well,
guys can-
I would
I'm
love to
open
take
be
a little bit.
interviewed or something.
I appreciate it. I would love to take more on the show though, as well. That way, people, because not everybody, has
Not
the
everyone
ability
follows
to follow
over to the
Patreon
Discord.
or
Elle,
Discord.
is there a way that you could call back early next week and we could continue this conversation, go part 2?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
if you have to
I'll
take
try
a
and
week
make that
off in
happen.
between, that's okay as well.
Yeah.
But really,
Yeah, I mean, I might go up to Sedona next weekend, but if I don't, I'll
oh
call
my
you
God, Elle, go to Sedona. Go to
Definitely
Sedona
don't cancel that plan for us.
and
We will
find
be here.
the nuttiest, wildest crap that you can. And Sedona is a hotbed of wacky woo. It's amazing. But Elle, in the meantime, thank you so much for calling.
Yeah, any other last questions? Sorry, I'll head off.
No, you're good. Just thank you for being vulnerable about your experience. I know that this kind of thing can be kind of, I don't know, like, I'll be honest with you. If they had gotten to me at the age of 14, I totally would have been in the same spot you were, like 100%, like migraines and all. So I feel you, and I want to thank you for speaking about this, because it can be difficult to look back on something that intense.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're doing that and allowing everyone else to learn what you have learned along with you is really beautiful.
Look, if my life can serve as a cautionary tale and get some poor kid out of it, that's all I want, you know, because, like, it sucks. And, you know, I have very literal lasting scars from it.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
yeah.
we really appreciate that you're here. We appreciate that you made it. And thank you so much for calling. We look forward to the next call.
Can I say one last thing real quick, though?
Yeah, what's up?
If there's anyone in a religion right now, any kind of religion, and they are telling you the world ends tomorrow, or there's some big spiritual battle on the horizon, they told me that too. So if you're in a restrictive sect of any religion, especially I know Christianity does this, I was also told the world was ending. You're not alone. It's scary.
Yeah.
Absolutely agreed. I think you're talking to two people who are also part of religions that said that as well.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
you're not alone either, Elle. Thank you for calling.
Things. Okay. I'll see you guys next week or the week after. Peace. Bye.
Take
Beautiful.
care. My goodness. So first off, a resource. If you are in a place where you just need somebody to talk to, check out the recoveringfromreligion.org. There's a hotline project. It is peer support. It is trained peer support, people who have gone through a process and are willing and ready to talk to you or just listen. It really does help. If you want to learn more about cults, I definitely suggest that you check out Telltale. Does a lot of really, really good stuff on cults. Drew, Genetically Modified Skeptic, has also done a lot on cults. They go into the bite model of cults and just learning about that and how people fall into it. You know, people think, oh, well, you know, you'd have to be gullible or dumb. And that's just not the case. Brilliant people get brought into cults as well. It's not about being smart. It's about being vulnerable.
Yeah.
And
The Antibot, who is Genetically Modified Skeptic's wife, also has a channel. I think she just released a video like this morning, and she deals specifically with MLMs and pyramid schemes and that kind of thing, which ties so much into the whole cult mentality as well.
If you just want to binge watch something, I've been binge watching The Antibot. It is definitely worth watching. It's a wild world with multi-level marketing and all of the crazy schemes that happen there.
Yeah.
Oh, this was a good episode. I enjoyed this.
Yeah, this was intense, and it's just great callers all around. Do we want to read super chats?
I do. And for people who are still watching, we read the super chats at the end of every episode, and we sincerely appreciate it. We're going to be putting money towards, as we said before, hiring someone to edit and produce this live, and also building a production computer. So everything helps. If you are not able to monetarily support us, that's okay. The show's free. We want it to be free, and we want you to, get the most out of it. If you haven't subscribed, consider subscribing, hitting the notification bell. All of those things help us. They help get us out there, and that's really beneficial as well. But today, let's go with our first person. Asexual Atheist sent $4.99 and says, an idea for a versus show, exploring the boundaries between belief and knowledge. Got the idea from Trude Hall in chat.
Oh. So what we're going to probably do is we're going to try out the format this month, and then we're going to open up a poll, and we'll let you guys vote
and tell us what you liked and didn't like.
Yeah, on what maybe we could talk about next. But I really like that idea because we have talked about that quite a lot. The only thing is I think we're a little too aligned on it.
Yeah,
So we'd have to like find where we disagreed in order to make that interesting. But really good idea, Asexual Atheist. F. Ganjora sent 10 Canadian dollars and a little #1 fan sticker.
Yay!
Thank you.
Jonathan Fuller sent $6.65. Hey, Jonathan! And says, I've met IRL Eric. Cool guy with some hot takes. He wouldn't show me where they were storing show Eric, though. That guy deserves to have some fun, too. I've said it before, and I'll say it again, Jonathan, getting to meet you was an absolutely wonderful experience. I'm so glad that we got to. And thank you.
Aw, Sarah Dye sent $10. Thank you, Sarah. I'm enjoying your show while on a snow hike with my pups. Beautiful day and great conversations. Thank you. That sounds amazing.
I'll be in the snow.
Hi, pups.
Holy Kool-Aid. Hey, Thomas. Holy Kool-Aid sent $5 and said, let's get a super chat train going.
Damn.
Oh my gosh, I don't think we've ever had a super chat train before. If you haven't checked out Holy Kool-Aid, definitely check out Holy Kool-Aid. I do work on the channel, and the person who does it is a dear, dear friend of mine, of ours. And thank you for joining us, man.
Caitlin Beyond sent $4.99.
Caitlin!
Thank you, Caitlin.
Hey, a volunteer.
Choo choo.
Dante Verona sent $20 and said, crying won't help you. Praying won't do no good. When the levee breaks, mommy, you gotta move. Led Zeppelin rocks it, but there's nothing like the original by Memphis Minnie from 1929.
Oh, nice.
I'm gonna have to look that up after this.
Yeah, for sure. Queen of Beams sent $5 and says, what you do for people like Elle, giving them a safe space to talk about their experiences, is why I love Skeptic Generation. Yay, good. That is part of what we want to do, right? We want to make sure that it's engaging and that they're heated conversations and debates about big topics. But also we do want to be a place where you can just come and be like, hey, this is something that's been weighing on me. I need another perspective.
Yeah, we want to exemplify that we can have difficult conversations in a way that can still be safe, can still be fun.
Yeah.
You don't need to avoid what's uncomfortable. You just need to have some empathy and some practice. Let's see. Top Cat sent $8.88 and said, please feel free to use this for a dinner for one.
Thank you, Top Cat.
Thank you.
The Blazing Wizard Pope.
Blazing Wizard Pope, long time no see.
Yay, 50 krona. Thank you. If I had magical powers, I would turn people into newts. They'd get better. I like it.
The number of people I would prefer as a newt is high. Is high.
They don't all have to get better.
If we could just send that to our caller from North Korea so he could turn those people into newts.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
that's a healthy way to communicate with people who disagree with you.
Turn them into a newt. Jonathan, again, wow, thank you. Sent $10 and said, V, Eric, thank you both for helping me understand myself. Love, Jonathan, they, them.
Yay!
Thank you, Jonathan. Did I misgender Jonathan?
I do not remember.
I might have. If I did, I apologize.
Aw. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you for being somebody who wants to take us along on your journey because it's pretty cool.
It is.
And then Truck Fump sent $4.99 and says, Super Chat Train, choo choo, all aboard.
Thank you. We've had we've got just an incredible community. Thank you all so much for joining us. This has been really good. V, thank you.
Absolutely. This was a good episode. I'm feeling good.
It has been. But until next time, we're glad we had this chat. Talk? We're glad we had this talk. Can we do it again?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
We're glad we had...
Wait. Okay, hold on.
Ready?